This episode is sponsored by Squarespace. I used Squarespace to build both Basics with Babish and bingingwithbabish.com. On the sites, you'll find recipes, equipment lists, other news, and updates. All beautifully designed, if I do say so myself. Get 10% off your first Squarespace order by visiting squarespace.com/babish.
Sloppy steaks at Truffani's. Big rare cut of meat with water dumped all over it, water splashing around the table. Makes the night so much more fun. After the club, go to Truffani's for sloppy steaks. They'd say, no sloppy steaks, but they can't stop you from ordering a steak and a glass of water. Before you knew it, we were dumping that water on those steaks. The waiters were coming to try and snatch him up. We had to eat as fast as we could. Oh, I miss those nights. I was a piece of shit, though.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Binging with Babish, where this week we're taking a look at the sloppy steaks from I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson. First, for our show-accurate version, we're going to heavily salt and pepper a nice big old T-bone. Let that sit at room temperature for 30 minutes to an hour before introducing it to a super hot cast iron griddle. Once it is as hot as you can feasibly get it, go ahead and plop the steak down, pressing it into the griddle to make sure that it's getting even contact with the heat. Let it sit undisturbed for 3 to 5 minutes, flipping once you've started to get some nice deep golden brownage. Let it sit for another 3 to 5 minutes, flipping it as necessary and holding it on its side to render out the cap of fat. And because this guy is so thick, I'm going to finish him off in a 400-degree Fahrenheit oven until he's registering 115 degrees at his thickest point. The steak also made a distinct sizzle when Tim's character poured water over it in Truffani's, so I've got a preheated oven-safe plate here. And of course, a glass of water. Here we go.
Please, no sloppy steaks.
Come on, what do you think I'm going to do? Me? Sloppy steaks? I don't know. Here we go. Let's slop them up. Oh man, Tim is right. This is so much more fun, especially when you're a real piece of shit like me. Okay, but in all seriousness, we have a somewhat competently cooked steak here in a whole bunch of water. And it's definitely not something I would seek out, but it's also not like ruining it either. Steak is still good so long as you eat around the water. And once I fished it out and patted it dry, it proceeded to become my lunch. But that being said, how can we make a delicious, intentional, but still piece of shit friendly sloppy steak? And I think the answer lies in a sort of tribute to shabu shabu. We're going to start out by making a dashi. I've got 4 large kombu leaves here that I've soaked in about 4 cups of water overnight. Bring that to a simmer. Once boiling, kill the heat and add 1 cup of bonito flake. Cover and let steep for at least 10 minutes. Strain that through some paper towels and a fine mesh sieve for a nice clear dashi, which is going to be a nice foundation for our broth. Grab a cup of this stuff and combine in a small saucepan along with 3 tablespoons each mirin and soy sauce and 2 teaspoons of sugar, which we're going to bring to a simmer and keep hot for serving later on. Meanwhile, I wanted to serve this with a sort of lotus root crisp, bring a little bit of texture to our soft and soupy party. So I'm going to peel and slice some lotus root paper thin on a mandolin, pick out my very favorite slices and soak them for 10 minutes in a mixture of 1 quart of water and a tablespoon each kosher salt and rice wine vinegar. Once they've hung out for 10 minutes, we're going to lay them out onto some paper towels and pat them super dry, because next up we're going to fry them in some canola oil that we've heated to about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Unfortunately, this made the lotus root both curl and cook unevenly, and I wanted really flat, super evenly browned crisps. So I'm going to try out that trick that we learned from the Sloppy Joe's episode, thoroughly coating the lotus root slices in oil before sandwiching between 2 rimmed baking sheets. Baking at 375 Fahrenheit with convection for 15 minutes. Oh, that's too long. And they're stuck, so let's try this again. More oil, slightly lower heat, and slightly shorter cooking time. 350 Fahrenheit for 8 minutes. Let's see how this works out, and they're not evenly cooked. I think it's because my mandolin is kind of a piece of shit. Eventually, I did get one to brown evenly for me, baking and rebaking at 1-minute intervals until I was left with a single perfect lotus root chip. Next up, a sort of wasabi puree. I couldn't get any fresh wasabi root, so I got 1/3 of a cup of wasabi powder here that I'm going to combine with 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of mirin, and then I'm going to alternate between adding water and oil, whisking thoroughly between each addition to make sure that everything's emulsified until we've reached our desired dollopable consistency. This could take anywhere up to a 1/2 cup each water and neutral flavored oil like canola. Then we are tasked with getting this liquid into a chefy little squeeze bottle, a chore that turned out to be maybe the most difficult part of the day, because we could not find a funnel small enough for the job. So 2 to 3 days later, once we got the bottle, I don't know, halfway full, our wasabi oil puree sauce is almost ready to use if I even decide to use it. I'm going to prepare for the final plating by peeling some black garlic, which is a funky fermented garlic, thinly shaving some black radish and carrot. But what of the steak, you might be asking? Well, here it it is. A little more than a pound of genuine A5 Wagyu ribeye, the fattiest and most expensive steak on the planet. This guy clocking in at just under $500. Don't worry, absolutely none of this is going to waste. I'm going to eat all of it, but I just want a little rectangular piece for our dish, which I'm going to cook on a ceramic yakitori grill over a glowing bed of binchotan, a special kind of white hardwood charcoal that burns very hot for a very long time very consistently. Top it up with the grate, get it ripping hot. We want our steak to be quite rare. Then we're dropping on one of our little cubes of ribeye and cooking for about 1 minute per side until it gets a nice golden brown crust. Use some big old chef's tweezers if you want to look cool while you're doing it. And I'm primarily going to sear the top and bottom, but also going to give the sides a little bit of loving just so it doesn't look too raw. Get the steak off the heat, let it rest for 5 minutes before slicing and serving. I'm going to start by placing a shiso leaf into my little Michelin-starred bowl plate, slice up the steak into bite-sized pieces, and arrange them neatly atop the shiso leaf. Maybe fan them out a little bit so you can see that rare beef action. Then I'm flanking the beef with our tiny shreds of carrot, radish, and enoki mushrooms, and then I'm topping each individual bite of beef with a little dab of our wasabi paste oil thing. Very glad I ended up using that. Place a single large salt crystal next to that, then make some tiny little shavings of black garlic and arrange those on the other side. And because what the hell, we're really shooting for the stars here budget-wise, how about some edible 24 karat gold, which should place our dish firmly into piece of shit territory. Once you've decorated it with your flavorless, odorless status symbol and figured out where you're going to put your one good lotus root crisp, you know what time it is. It's time to slop them up. We're going to pour our piping hot, I'm not entirely sure what to call this stuff, down into the bottom of the bowl so as to not disturb our delicate decorations. And I know it's A5 Wagyu, so it's already going to be pretty great, but this is genuinely ridiculously delicious. There's an excellent balance of salt and fat and acid. Nothing's getting overwhelmed or lost in the background. The lotus root chip tastes like a potato chip, so that's nice. Even after the delicious steak was gone, the softened vegetables and peppery minty shiso leaf, the broth which I drank like cereal milk, it's not quite shabu shabu, it's not quite sloppy steaks, it's sloppy shabu, or something. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's episode. They've been a great partner in supporting the Babish culinary universe and bringing my websites to life. From websites to online stores to domains and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform for you to build your online presence. They also have SEO tools so that your site is getting found and searched by more people more often. If you want to try it for yourself, you can start your free trial today by visiting squarespace.com/Babish to get 10% off your first purchase.